Hello, I am the Jameis. I am the new co-host alongside my boy Patrick for the NXT post show here on BodySlam.net every week, every Tuesday night, immediately following that week's edition of NXT 2.0. Patrick, how you doing?
What's up, man? How you doing? What's good?
I have my
Throwback right
moments.
there, man.
A little tired, yes. Pardon me, my bad. Excuse me.
Oh,
Throwback.
I have people who know my real name and stuff like that and stuff, but it's fine. It's just I'm so used to going on this whole thing and just hearing throwback all the time, YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff. So it's like when I'm on this, I separate. It's kind of like the way wrestlers and performers they separate the two. So like when I'm on camera and stuff, the only times it's hard is when you have an 8-year-old rushing into the frame. Luckily, she's asleep. So
I got you, man. I have a shoot name too. It's not Chavis by any means. Um, so what did you like most from this week's show?
let's get off the bat right there. Bash, it's the Great American Bash has its main event, and I'm excited for this. The In Your House pay per view for me was lackluster a bit. There were some great spots. The Grimes Hayes match was really good. It was literally fast paced, just like how Grimes had it with Frazier, which I think, and I've said this before, Nathan Frazier is a future NXT champion. And I think that might happen sooner rather than later. Um, for me, Grimes and Breaker makes perfect sense because if you're going to do anything with Cameron Grimes and Breaker's done with Gacy, after Gacy is done, who do you have to gap in between? Because honestly, I think Hayes is going to lose the North American Championship to either Soa Sikoa or Tony D'Angelo. But I also believe that they're going to end up giving Hayes the chance before SummerSlam at the takeover for Summer the weekend of SummerSlam, or even further. Let's just put the monkey wrench. Breaker still has the title up to Survivor Series in Boston. I wouldn't be surprised they travel up here and have it at the Garden and give Hayes the coronation that he rightfully deserves as a NXT champion in his backyard.
There were a couple of things I liked from this show. I really liked the Cameron Grimes thing, as you noted. I really enjoyed the opening tag bout, and specifically Edris and Afe, who we'll go more into when we get there. I also liked the backstage segment with Grimes and Anafe and his partner Malik Blade. I think there's a lot you can do with that. Again, we'll get to that. It was a very hit or miss show, but a lot more hit for me this week than I was anticipating. So, what were your thoughts in the opening tag match?
It was really good. I mean, you already knew the Creeds were going to end up winning anyways, but it showcased, Inafre and his partner. I'm bad with names a lot of
Malik Blade.
times. Malik Blade. Um, it basically showcased them as a strong tag team and got them the opportunity to go against somebody that's in their same development cycle. I could literally see Blade and Onofre as like, eventually down the line compared to Harlem Heat, which is really high praise because they're really good. And once they get into a stride and, NXT does use them for the right purposes, I wouldn't be shocked if you see them back in that title hunt against the Creed brothers. Now, who is the Creed brothers lining up to go against at, the Great American Bash? There's really not much. They did WWE brought up Imperium. That would have worked. The Viking Raiders are probably back in catering. I hate to say that. I wish they would, if they would have a shot at the Creeds, that would be awesome for a championship match. Kind of mix up the 2-2 match that they have against each other, and just get a third bout on that. It's very thin. It was really big into the tag division that they created, and now it's kind of like thinning out a little bit. You have the Daiad, which I'm very, very skeptical about it. How are you going to have druids wrestle? I mean, it's kind of hard. It's like a gimmick wrestling thing. Um, you've got obviously the Creeds. You've got Malik Blade and Nufre. You've got Diamond two pair besides the Creed brothers. You have Strong and the other member of Diamond Mine. I can't forget that out.
I
Like I said,
think
I'm
the
bad with names.
obvious answer here is a rematch with Pretty Deadly, which I'll get to that in this moment. I just want to go over the match a little bit. There was a lot I liked. I specifically want to hit on the fundamentals of the match. Edris Anafe was great. He's still green in a lot of ways, but the dude's a legit physical specimen. A great athlete, of course. With the Navy background, you're going to be a great athlete, like Anafe is. But there were a lot to like, specifically in the fundamentals. The Creed's got a lot of the out of the headlocks, which I like to see. Too often, a headlock is more of a transitional hold, and apply it tight, make it mean something. And I like the Anafe. You could see his struggle when he was in things such as the front face lock. But I like the fundamentals, specifically in Anafe's footwork, but also the that leapfrog thing he does, and then the rolling drop down. The drop down's an elementary maneuver. You jump over the guy, you try to trip him up, but too many people drop too soon, um, or to where it's why are you jumping over the guy? Just hit him. So I really like the rolling drop down he does. I think it's different. I think it's unique. I think it stands out, and I think it makes it more logical. Like he's going after him to try and trip him up. Just small things like that to where he may be green, but you can see where his mind is in the business, making things make sense logically. Tremendous stuff. And that drop kick. Look, I have a new show I'm recording tomorrow, and the first episode's focused specifically on drop kicks. I messaged my co-host tonight, and I went, "We're adding another clip to the show tomorrow because, like, that drop kick is a thing of beauty."
There's not
Um,
many people that can pull a really good drop kick. I mean, Ziggler's up there though, so I mean that's one person you
you'd
could
be
just look at right off the
surprised
bat.
because I could list 50 to 60 people right now with drop kicks that I find impressive, but that's also because I just researched it for a project I'm doing. But the size of Edris Anafe combined with the height that he gets, it just looks awe-inspiring. And
You remember, speaking of that, with the Nafra, do you with the size and the stuff? You remember the Big Show doing a drop kick?
yeah, Scott Steiner sold that pretty funny. But I actually like Scott Steiner selling that. But I thought the match was solid. I really like the Creed brothers style. I admittedly have not seen that much of their work. I've seen enough to know what their every wrestler has their 5 spots they pretty much hit every match. Whether they differentiate it and make those spots more versatile throughout is on them. But every wrestler has their basic let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. With Bret Hart, it was the pointed elbow, it was the corner bump, the snap suplex. You know what I'm saying? They
The
have
Russian
their
leg
move,
sweep, and then into the sharpshooter.
they they have their moves, their spots that they do. But I love the physical style that they bring. I love the I love the rough and tough, and I love that they for big men to throw each other around like that to inflict punishment on their opponents and they're throwing each other around themselves is different. I think it's cool. And I think it adds an element to the match and the division that a lot of divisions don't have. So I like what I've seen from the Creed brothers so far. I don't know if I like that they're tag champions now. I would have given Pretty Deadly a little bit longer of a run, but obviously Pretty Deadly is going to want their championships back. So going back to your earlier point, I think that's probably the team that takes them on at Great American Bash in July. You still have a couple weeks to build to that. You can bring Pretty Dudley back any week now.
I
That's my
mean, for me, it's like okay, I I can give the comparison to the Acolytes with the Creed brothers mainly because of the fact that their style is almost the same type where it's like they'll put you through a table, they'll put you through a wall and stuff like that, and they'll just beat the crap out of you. And it's the same thing with the Alkalides, the APA, where they literally would go into a bar and beat the crap out of each other or somebody. It's that hardcore, very physical style. And I think it's the right time for the Creeds, for one thing. They should have won it about a few weeks back in that gauntlet match. That would have been the topper. And we would be talking about how, Staffley Hookaway, aka, Malcolm Bivens, would probably still be relatively as, part of it. I mean,
I
in
don't
some
think
way, shape,
Malcolm
or
would be
form.
a part of it because the Fightful Select reported that he had asked for his release, or
Yeah.
pardon me, he had indicated that he wasn't going to re-sign a new deal.
No, I know.
So it
But I'm
makes
just playing
sense that he
devil's
was going to be
advocate
a
in
part of it.
this.
Uh,
I was playing devil's advocate because I'm like, you never know. I mean, it could have, that point could have, swayed him a different.
I
But
don't think it
I
does, but
I think the Creeds are right now the perfect ones. I think that you need something different than Pretty Deadly, because I think right now Pretty Deadly is trying to figure out who their next opponent is to build up on that. I The only other tag team I can see that could possibly be there, and a lot of people are sleeping on, I think Brooks and Jensen could actually get a shot at the Creeds and literally go toe to toe, because Jensen and Briggs are the same type of style. They're very physical, very straightforward. You know, I think Jensen or Briggs had a match against Waller about a couple weeks ago, and literally he turned Waller inside out, and then Von Wagner was his next opponent too. So I
I
mean,
think you're forgetting that Damon Kemp and Roderick Strong were watching this match from the backstage area. So obviously they were on the show, they were scouting the Creeds. Now, whether that translates to a match at Great American Bash remains to is be evident, but that could be a team. Their sights are set for the tag championships.
I mean, and also you can tie into Money Blade and Onofre at the back end of the show's segment where they're talking to Grimes, and that might end up being something interesting. They might have an idea down the line for a ladder match. Like, one of the things that I'm looking at the landscape just in the North American Championship side, which we can get into that right now, is that it's interesting to see that they, with Hayes being champion, that they're doing the same formula for him to have a contender over and over again. I
It's
mean,
not because they do it with every champion across all three brands.
well, I think Hayes is a little different because Hayes is going to probably be set up for a triple threat at the Great American Bash with Sikoa and D'Angelo. I think there's going to be shenanigans next week. And I really think that they're going heavily on both of those two guys. I think if they are really thinking about pulling the trigger to make Breaker go up, I think Hayes is the perfect person to have that title to actually carry the NXT banner. I think he should have carried the NXT banner before Breaker did.
So
But
with
that's just me.
the segment tonight with D'Angelo, I was a little taken aback because are they starting to turn Carmelo Hayes face here?
It feels like it more so because they want to keep D'Angelo heel. And the thing about it is that
D'Angelo
they're
should be heel.
yeah, I know that. But the thing about it is that there's also that inner working with that stipulation from In Your House with, El Gato del Fantasma being a part of the,
Legato.
what I quote, the family. Well, I can't pronounce certain things. I'm not perfect, just like a lot of things. But the thing is that with the way that stipulation is in and they're using it, I wouldn't be shocked that either the shenanigan is that, Santos Escobar costs him the North American Championship and we run back that stipulation and they decide to just do something like what they did with LA Knight and Grimes, where Grimes had to beat LA Knight to not beat his butler and stuff like that. I think that we're toting that line, but just in factions. BB said this best about a couple of months ago that they're leaning really heavily towards gang warfare in this stuff, and it's popped up and it shows. So if this comes to pass, we end up going to possibly have three different factions, one building up in front of our eyes right now, and then two others that are now, mainstays in NXT. So I wouldn't be shocked to see, more of this stuff coming up.
So, to circle back to the show, not that you weren't on the show, obviously. The next match on the itinerary was Tiffany Stratton and Fallon Henley. Fallon Henley gets a bit of an upset here. From what I saw, from what I've seen in general, I like Tiffany Stratton. I think she has a lot of potential. I think she has a nice presence. I think she needs to work on her footwork a little bit. As you can see, her footwork is kind of not there yet. And that's the most fundamentally key thing in professional wrestling. But you can see she's a great athlete. That moonsault is fantastic. But the match was okay. The bridging submission that she didn't look like it hurt, where she had her kind of in a, I don't
It's just
even know
like
how to
you're just
say it.
sitting down like a 2-year-old, literally leaning down with your hands right there, like you're posing for or like a classroom picture or something like that. Like,
It looked like it might put a little pressure on the neck, but nothing that
nothing major.
hurts, nothing that would warrant a big time submission hold, which is fine. She's learning. That's what developmental is for. And I would rather her try to do something different, see what works, experiment a little bit. Not everything you try is going to work. Just don't do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but also sometimes I hear comparisons to Charlotte with Tiffany Stratton, and it's just it's like comparing apples to oranges. I think Fallon Henley,
Well, with
it,
Charlotte, her bridging submission does not look like it hurts either.
no, but I'm just saying, like how with the athletic and stuff like that, because Charlotte did gymnastics a little bit too, I believe. But it's
She did.
just for me, it's just it's like apples to oranges. It's like, Charlotte's is where she is now, and if you compare it to where she was in NXT, Charlotte was still like a mile ahead of where Tiffany
Right.
is at this point. But for the match itself, I was glad that Fallon won just because of the fact that it was like her 50-50 way, not her per se, but WWE's 50-50 way of giving her like, okay, you lost to Tiffany Stratton in the women's breakout star tournament, even though they had to insert her as an emergency because of Nikita Lyons. But it literally is interesting because of the fact that if they didn't, it would have been Fallon and Roxy, and I really was wanting to see that match because of the styles they have. They would mesh so perfectly. But 50-50 booking in its finest right here. As soon as you knew, Fallon and Tiffany were going to be on, and you remembered the match that they had for the breakout, where Tiffany basically won and faced Roxy in the finals. You kind of figured out that they would run this back at some point and give Fallon the win. And that's what happened with the way it went.
50-50 booking is pretty much their modus operandi. But the finish of the match featured Windy Chu distracting Tiffany Stratton. So obviously this match was a device to further that story a little bit. I don't know what else I want to add on that, but
I think they're running back an old story because Windy Chu and Tiffany Stratton had a whole thing going on, a feud at the beginning of the year where Wendy stole Daddy's credit card and ended up spending a bunch of other stuff. And now they're running it back again because of the fact that they don't know what to do with Wendy Chu. I think
that's the
for
issue with a character that's so one dimensional. You can't
I
do much
think
with the Windy Chu persona.
I think I think there's a lot in depth you can do with her because of the fact that it, if you remember like what is it, the snuggle bugs where they light up, it kind of she kind of reminds me of one of those things, one of those the dolls where you could just light it up and stuff and everybody lights up. Yeah, it might be a Connie thing, but I think if they push comes to shove and they need to bring somebody for Mandy again, I think Wendy would be a good fit, even though she had a one match, because it seems like every, other than Cora Jade, every match that they presented for Mandy, it's either been one person, two matches, one person, one match. And now it's like you're shorting the stick for people to go against her. And now, with Roxy having that breakouts title, the opportunity for a championship title, it at any time as she wants. It's like NXT's Money in the Bank, basically for the breakouts. It 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 just literally shortens that line. So if, like, say you give Wendy another shot at the titles, or better yet, give her a shot with the tag titles with somebody like Indy or anything, I mean, it puts her, that character she created,
I think putting
more eyes
her in a
on it.
tag team can give the character more depth. You can do more with it in a tag team because there's not a serious edge to it, and you kind of need that to be to reach higher than she currently is. You can't break through a ceiling with this character.
I mean, they had everything squared off for her, like her popping in segments and stuff like that. The segment where um, Brooks and Jensen were talking about Cadence and Catanzaro, and like literally about how they wanted to date the two of them and stuff like that, and Wendy
I've
sitting
burned
on
that
top of the
story out
locker.
of my mind.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Wendy was sitting on top of it and just saying you like her, and then they just pan off. I like those kinds of things with her because it gives you a little bit of like hint at it and stuff. And when Dakota was around, just having her like play around with it was fun to watch. It's just it's something with her that it gravitates to me. Like I can just like sit there, I can watch her act goofy and stuff like that, and it'd be fun because at least she's enjoying what she's doing right now compared to half the people.
I don't disagree, but like I enjoy Toriano of New Japan, but I don't want to see him in big time solo programs because there's nothing to bite into with that, and there's really nothing that you can ever make me go, "Oh, he has a real shot at beating Kazuchika Okada." You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same thing here. There's no long-term story you can tell with this character, and she's found her a nice niche or niche in this. Let me pop into segments. Let me do this. Kind of like, and I think the character's on two different scales, so I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying, kind of like before the match with Pac, Orange Cassidy was kind of just popping into segments. There's a place for that, but there's not much more you can do with it. And I think putting her in a tag team could work here. The next match on the card was Wesley and Zion Quinn. I didn't have many notes from this one.
Zion Quinn is like a beast, and they'll all stem from like Wesley winning like within 3 seconds and stuff, and Zion just basically saying no, that was a fluke kind of thing. It was kind of them running it back to point out that there's flaws still with Zion. And Wesley's finish, oh my god, that was so gorgeous. Freaking off the top rope doing a corkscrew into an elbow, that literally was just like insane. That's something I've never seen a man do before. I've seen, Ricochet pull some crazy stuff, and everything. Hell, I'll even call this crazy because we were just talking about Wendy too doing the goodnight elbow drop, literally just going like that, and you're just hitting the elbow right on the person. It,
Best elbow drop to this day is Perry Saturn.
yeah, but I'm saying like for stuff like that, but that finish with him hitting that unbelievable finish, it's insane. I hope that one day he hits that for a championship for himself. It's much deserved. He's working really hard because of everything that happened with
Smash
MSK and
Brother.
stuff. And it would be great to just basically give him a shot at a singles title and just validate, saying, "Hey, we know you were a tag guy, but you worked your butt hard for this. You dug your heels in the trenches and stuff like that. This is what's going on for it."
Wes Lee's got a lot of potential, and there's a lot to work with there. I would like to see them. I don't want them to hot shot a title onto him because sometimes that can be more detrimental than beneficial. I wouldn't mind that as long as they come up with a concise plan before doing it. Now, oftentimes they don't think before they do, so I'm not holding my breath on that one. But
I want to move into the next one because this leads into the segment with Samir. Oh my God, they're making him the freaking NXT version, and I thought of this, and I wanted to pop this in when we were talking uh, in text. Is that he is the NXT's version of sexual chocolate? Like in that segment with two girls on the side, he's like, "I think I found my next opponent." Like that, the size Mark Henry was, and that back in the '90s when he in being that character, the strength this guy has, and everything. Oh my God, it just made me think sexual chocolate, like literally just instantaneously, just because of the fact that he has that charisma that literally like he oozes that on the screen for me. But the thing is that it's fun to see somebody that could just play it off like, I found who I want to go against next, and just act like it, and then walks away and say, ladies, come with me. It's just awesome to see all this stuff.
I don't have much more to add to that. The next match on the show was the Daiad versus Dante Chen and Javier Bernal. I think both of us had the same reaction to this.
What the heck? What I was gonna say, where's
Mine was a
the
little more animated in our work group chat.
yeah, I mean, for me, I was gonna say, like, since when did Undertaker have a rental shop for druids?
The issue, and I was thinking to myself throughout this match, was imagine if one of their hoods fall off.
You heard the crowd too. They were like, "Take your hoods off," and they were clapping and stuff. They were like,
The,
"Take your hoods off."
the you hear this a lot with masks. At least with masks, you can still see facial features and stuff. A lot of professional wrestling storytelling, a lot of it's melodrama, and Shawn Michaels loves his melodrama. He's like Douglas Sirk backstage putting matches together and stories together. But a lot of it derives from mannerisms and facial expressions. If you can't see any of these features, it's hard to get the viewer at home invested, or it's much more difficult by any means. And I like that they work slower. They work slower until they didn't, so they it felt like something out of a horror movie. The villain's kind of methodical until he's not.
Yeah,
I thought that was a nice touch, but other than that, there wasn't much there to latch onto for the viewer at home. I don't need to see these guys work again. I think having that type of henchman for Joe Gacy could be great because he is a cult leader. But I think the execution was mismanaged here. Don't need to put him in matches.
I've had friends ask me who do watch NXT from time to time ask me where Hartwell is. Hart, the bald guy that literally everybody thought was Brock Les, the next installment of
Oh,
Brock Lesnar.
Parker Boudreaux.
Yeah, but his name was Hardwell or something like that. And it's interesting for everything else because I have a feeling, and one
Harlan
of my
was his
friends,
name.
yeah, Harlan, sorry about that.
When you said
But
Hardwell, I was thinking Indy Hartwell. She's on
yeah,
TV.
no, I was thinking I was close on names. Like I'm lucky to remember a lot of names. I mean, epilepsy does that for you at times.
You're good, man.
But for me though, it's just I could see Parker Bordeaux being one of those people because of the whole thing of being the NXT releases. If they have like 90 days to fix, at that point when he was released, they gave everybody a 90-day thing where they could fix up, and if they don't do it, they're just pure release. I read something like that, and if that's the case, and they see that he's improving, not on screen but without in the ring, at the performance center, I wouldn't be shocked that he's one of those people in there, and they just added someone else to balance him out.
The next match on our card is Braun Breaker and Duke Hudson. And Braun Breaker runs right through Duke Hudson. There's really not much to discuss. Of course, Braun Breaker's very impressive bell to bell. Very close to his father in a lot of ways. Moves like him in a lot of ways. Looks just like him. They do have something here. I would
I
like to
hate
see him
this.
moved up soon because I don't think there's much more for him to do in NXT.
I hate to say this, and I've watched enough of Braun Breaker in NXT and stuff, and it's praise, but it's not. Just because Goldberg did the same finisher, same move as he uses his finisher and stuff when Goldberg was in WCW. Yeah, that's it. He reminds me of WCW Goldberg, where he literally could run rickshaw through everybody, and he uses almost the same moveset except for minus the freaking jackhammer. And
Which was the coolest move Bill Goldberg ever did.
but I mean, he spears him. Goldberg did the pump up slam, the press lift slam. That's his finish, and it's just okay. So next thing you know, Vince is going to be like, "Well, you have the same moves as Bill. Maybe it's time we give you this one, and Bill will give you permission to use it." And there you go. You have him for a long time holding the person up in a jackhammer and letting him down. I've seen enough where I can pass my thoughts on Breaker overall now, because I said, wait, I'm going to wait until I see where it is. And he had one match, the match with Ciampa, which were killer, and then he ended up getting a second match and getting the title. I think at this point, you're right. Breaker needs to go to the main roster. When is the question? I
I would have
mean,
done it already. I would not have given him the belt back after Ziggler.
I wouldn't have either, but I think at this point they pigeonholed everything because they realized, okay, well, Hayes might not be ready at that point, but I believe he is, like a lot of people out there, and it's time to give him something else. I mean, if I'd be I'd be very, very interested to see what names Vince pulls out of his ass just to have freaking Breaker change his name. Yeah, Gunther instead of Walter. Gosh. Damn Jeff Dunham.
Well, that's a perfect segue because our next match is the repackaged Fabian Eichner, who is a longtime stablemate of the aforementioned Walter.
Yeah, they even hinted at it in a lot of the promos. He wants to surpass his previous group.
Giovanni Vinci. I have a lot of thoughts on here, most of which
The,
probably get us banned on YouTube.
the
I like
name.
Fabian Eichner.
Why are you going to use, okay, let's get this straight. Giovanni da Vinci, right? Leonardo da Vinci. It sounds the same.
So I don't even know how to describe this persona. The 4 photos was fascinating, and I really hope you can sense the facetiousness in my voice on that comment.
I saw all the physicality. We already knew how great he was.
Oh, Fabian Eichner is a great in-ring performer, no question.
And the thing is that they should have just, the old term, leaving sleeping dogs lie. They should have left him as is and built him up as who he was. I mean, the speed the guy has, the power he has is ridiculous. And that friggin' almost last ride sit down power bomb was insane. That was really good.
And then after that, Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, our boy, versus Stacks and Two Dimes. I love those names.
I feel like I'm money laundering when I hear that.
And I think that's the point. I love that the entire Tony D'Angelo, Stack, Two Dimes, Troy, Two Dimes, Donovan. I feel like he just got released, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Well, let's be very honest. I found out through a news outlet that these were tapes. So I mean,
Oh, it was taped?
yeah.
Okay, so for those who do not know, Troy Two Dimes Donovan was released earlier this week. So going forward, he will not be on NXT's product. Probably won't be written off because they always leave that stuff open ended in NXT. And
Or better yet, they replace him with somebody else and say, "Hey, this is the Troy Two Dimes."
Channing Stacks Lorenzo. Not much to write home about here. The A champion, again, impressive. Always impressive. One of the best workers in NXT.
I'm
Total
starting to think.
package.
I think that they're going to put Trick Williams in the Wardlow spot at some point. Not because you can't compare Hayes to MJF, but I'm just
It'll be
saying
the
just
diesel
something like
spot.
that.
It'll be
Yeah.
the diesel spot because Shawn Michaels is running NXT and Carmelo Hayes works a lot like him.
Yeah, it
You can
makes more
see the
sense.
Shawn influence where Shawn's working with them. I think if anything, the comparison is Shawn and Diesel, two dudes with attitude.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just interesting too because, like I said, next week's going to end up leading to some shenanigans. Escobar's going to do something, and because they announced the match later on for the North American Championship for next week.
That's somebody who needs to hold that belt. Santos Escobar would be a solid North American champion.
I think, and a lot of people want, and they've said it in Twitter, and a lot of people that have watched this, have watched NXT, and actually has asked me what I think sometimes, is that they want Solo Sikoa to be holding that North American Championship, and then just show up on SmackDown, just walk around, and just hold that title above everybody in front of the bloodline and say, "I did this on my own with not your help," and then just leave with the belt and walk away.
Solo Sikoa is very comfortable. I think they have something there. The main event of the evening. Cora Jade, Roxanne, or as we know her, Roxy, uh, and Indy Hartwell against Toxic Attraction.
God help us all.
You know, I'm wearing a Mandy Rose shirt, so obviously I don't mind Mandy Rose. Of course, this is one of her main roster shirts because since between all the releases and all the call ups, I don't have any NXT shirts anymore. But there was a spot in the match where Mandy and Indy, and I got a message, and it said, "I just watched about a 45-minute switch go behind Hammerlock exchange reversal between Mandy and Indy that was much better than it ever should have been." And honestly, I was expecting this match to be a train wreck, so I completely understand where that message was coming from.
Yeah, I think for me, the spot that they cut you could tell it was taped too because of the fact that the camera cuts at the end of the show where it was just Mandy and Gigi at the back end.
Yeah, the editing was
not Gigi, the other one in Toxic Attraction.
Casey Jane.
Yeah, and Gigi was literally taking Cora Jade's finisher, which is like the coffin drop, basically, and Gigi took it rough. From what I was reading about a week ago, when I just stumbled on the article from Wrestling Source, and it said that Gigi got hurt in that match at that the final push on that match. It If I'm right about that, I can't find the article online, but it was, like I said, this stuff was taped and there was a note on there about that. So
So I'm going to give a shout out to Corey Brennan, our main wrestling news writer here at Body Slam. He's been doing terrific work as of late. Um, on June 9th, so about 5 days ago, I'm going to verbatim quote his article here. NXT recorded 2 weeks worth of tapings over the last few days, and one of the major elements of those tapings were related to Toxic Attraction, as they had a match as a trio along with a promo segment. According to PW Insider, and there's a hyperlink to PW Insider I'm going to open, Dolin suffered a scary injury during a 6-woman tag match taped for next week's episode. She would take a move wrong, leading to the match ending early and Gigi being helped to the back. She would later appear in a further segment where there was no physicality, but it was a good sign that she returned to the ring following a scary situation. From the PW Insider report, it looks to be from Billy Cronston, and it's just a detailed report of the taping. Others from the show, other notes from the show at the end, of footnote. During the 6-woman tag match on the first episode of NXT, there was a scary injury as Cora Jade hit Gigi with a cannonball senton and went to pick up Gigi, who did not get up, so Cora quickly pinned her, which isn't true because you saw Elena Black, excuse me, Cora Jade tag Roxanne real quick. Gigi was helped to the back and got an ovation. She came back out for an in-ring promo later in the show. Yada, yada, yada. No physical involvement. On Toxic, and she seemed okay. And most likely just got the wind knocked out of her. So that's the full story there from what I've
but
gathered.
but USA basically cut at the end of the three of them, Indy, Cora, and Roxy, at the end of the ramp, and then they just cut to black on that afterwards with the logo and just ended the whole thing. There was no promo at the end unless they're going to cut that promo and
Next
edit it
week.
into next week.
Because from what I've gathered, that was the first of 2 tapings. So they came back later and did the in-ring promo for next week's edition.
It's going to be interesting to see how they build it up, because the Great American Bash is literally the day after the 4th of July. So, which is literally in about 2 or 3 weeks from now. So they have time. So they did this taping and they have this one. Their go home show will be that Tuesday before
Independence Day is in 20 days from today, as we're recording this, and we're recording this the night of the 14th. So more or less 19 days.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, for me, the whole thing with Grimes is what I'm looking forward to. That night, I don't know much of how they're going to build everything up.
I kind of skipped over that. Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, because that promo was money.
It was sick. It's probably one of the best promo segments with Breaker right in front, where Grimes is basically saying, "I'm done waiting. I want my shot now. I'm taking my shot now." Now, if this is the way I could see how things go, okay? We have Money in the Bank coming up. They're probably going to have somebody as a surprise entry. Who knows? Wouldn't it make sense at Bash at the Beach to take the belt off Breaker, the NXT one, and give it to Grimes and let Breaker be a surprise entry in the Money in the Bank? That would be
I
interesting.
wouldn't put him in the Money in the Bank. I don't like the idea of hot shotting Breaker that quickly, but I would like to see Grimes go over here. I think the promo that Grimes cut tonight felt authentic, and it's so rare to find something that feels authentic for a lot of guys. When I think of authentic promos in NXT, there aren't many. I think of Sami Zayn's "If I don't win the title, I retire" promo during the program with Adrian Neville. That felt authentic, and that got people gravitating towards Sami Zayn. That was 2014, if my memory serves me correctly. So we're now 8 years later, and I can count on one hand how many promos have made me get invested into a match in one shot, as that promo did. Grimes did
The
that tonight.
the setup for the NXT Brooklyn show with
No, that was not.
the no, I'm
Oh,
saying for promo wise, where Sasha was literally picking on Bailey, saying you're not ready for it, you're not doing it, you're a crybaby, all that stuff, making fun of her,
Sasha
and
has two of
then
them for me, actually.
and the thing is that one stands out to me because and that's the match that changed wrestling in the time frame it is. It made women's wrestling, everybody talk about it. It started a revolution and stuff. I mean, it there's like a few others too. I mean, you know, Balor going out there and being prideful of being the NXT would cut some good promos here and there, not like spectacular, but noteworthy ones. But he would literally show how great he was at what he was doing.
But here, you could see it was personal for Grimes. There was a real story there. The Your father got to watch you get the belt quickly from the front row while mine had to watch down. No, everybody knows who your father is. Nobody knows who mine is, so I have to work harder. There's a lot of meat to that bone, and I think you could tell. You've been telling the story of Cameron Grimes' upbringing into something far beyond his wildest dreams, falling right back down to earth right after, ever since he joined NXT. And I think this is where it finally levels out. And I think people are behind Cameron Grimes. They've been behind Cameron Grimes for a while. That's the perfect guy to defeat Breaker because people are invested now. And let Carl Hayes beat a babyface Cameron Grimes later and move Breaker up. That's what I
I
do.
I think the thing is that the break it let me rebreathe this and say this correctly. Ciampa was the locker room leader in
Oh,
NXT for the longest time. Then you had, and then now with Ciampa gone, you have Grimes is basically leading the locker room because Strong doesn't want to do that. But you can see Grimes literally wanting to take the bull by the horns and run with it.
Cameron Grimes is great, and I think there's a lot you can do with him. So I would put the belt on him at the Great American Bash personally, and I'd move Braun Breaker up. There's not much more you can do with Braun Breaker in NXT.
Well,
Uh,
with what I was wanted to talk to you about this and stuff like that because we have a few minutes is that NXT recently has just been ebb and flows with on their shows. In Your House, there was maybe two good matches. They haven't ever since Stand and Deliver. They have not put a good card together for one of these, high end shows, not like pay per views. I hate calling it premium live events. Um, I'm old school when it comes to that. They're still pay per views to me.
right?
The They haven't put in the effort since the first Great American Bash with that card that was an killer card with Lee and Cole with the double championships. Every
2019
special, yeah, so every special event that they've
or
done
in 2020.
has not been up to par. It literally isn't. It's like maybe one or two great matches and then and go from there.
NXT's
Like
been riding on reputation for a long time. I think longer than that.
It's more so not the black and gold. I love the black and gold stuff. It's very special and near and dear to my heart. It's just with 2.0, they get like Stand and Deliver was amazing. They got a whole good card out of it, and then the regular shows ebb and flow. They drip. They stink for about 2 weeks. They get one great show pop up. It's kind of like heart monitor kind of.
I
But
think
when it
one thing we
comes
need to
to
consider here is that it's always been developmental, but with the black and gold brand, it was primarily they got their talent from independent, so their talents were experienced and were just learning the WWE style, where their hard cam is, stuff like that. Pander the
but
camera, tighten the screws a little bit. Whereas the a lot of the performers on the show now are athletes learning. So it of course they're going to be a lot greener and the products
I,
match
I'm
quality wise isn't going to be as good. And I think we're
I know,
putting them to
but
a
I'm looking at it not as the body of work of the black and gold. I'm looking at it, and I asked this question to Pluggo a while back. I'm looking at where it became from FCW to the black and gold NXT, where you had that first graduating class for NXT, and I'm comparing it to what we have now, which is this 2.0 graduating class. It,
the first
between
the FCW class with NXT, like the first NXT class, those FCW guys were Seth Rollins, who had been in Ring of Honor for years as Tyler Black. It was Dean Ambrose, who John Moxley was a well seasoned veteran on the independent scene. They were still experienced professional wrestlers outside of certain names, whereas this is more primarily athletes coming in, and it's just a completely different business model now with where they're getting their talent from. Which is that right or wrong? That remains to be seen. I have my own opinions on it, but right now these shows are more people learning, and it is developmental. It's just aired on TV, unlike developmental in the past.
Yeah, I know, but it's for me. It's like I'm looking at it different ways. Like Charlotte wasn't developed. Charlotte was like not developmental. She literally was just like in that first class. Eva Marie was in that first class. Alexa Bliss was first class.
Eva
But for
Marie.
every person I name that was in that first class that didn't have experience, you had something like, Bailey, Sasha, who is Mercedes KV, who came from around here, chaotic. You had, so many other people, and too, it's just,
Becky Lynch.
yeah, it's just for me, it it's with this 2.0 product. When I mean ebb and flows, I understand that there are people that are there that's independence. Grimes was one of them. They had a
Roderick
bunch of
Strong,
others
obviously.
strong. Um, Carmelo Hayes. He was a chaotic wrestler for a long time.
Carmelo
And
Hayes killed it on the Indies. Very under the. I'm glad they picked him up when they did, but his independent run was a lot of fun. I was a big Christian Casanova guy.
yeah, chaotic champion too. On top of all that, I I really think that
He did great
with
work in Limitless.
yeah, I heard about all that stuff. I had John Alba on Wicked Crazy Pinfalls who was talking about Limitless. Um, it it's really hard to basically like not expect certain things with the talent behind the scenes. But I want to. I'm hoping that, and it's not the pay-per-views that, like I said, that are not the problem. It's the events, the special event shows that they have where they build, and then the go home show before the special event, it just all drops to shit. And then you have to rebuild everything quickly. Um, it, I'm not a producer. I'm not anything like that back there. But for me watching this stuff, it's like, how am I going to invest it in where it goes? Okay, we had this phenomenal show. It drops down real quick. 2 weeks down, you have a beep up. with a good show, and then it drops back down, and then your special show is the next week. With this, the last 2 weeks for the show was just trying to build up to this show. And if this show here, excluding certain skits, was the go home show for Great American Bash, say the 4th of July weekend was next weekend, I would perfectly understand it because you're building stuff up from there. But we have, like you said, 19 days. So there's 2 weeks shows and one taped and another go home show. I'm hoping and I'm praying if the gods of NXT over there at the Performance Center are ever listening to us, which is a long shot at times, please do this right. Make this like a takeover. And I'm not saying a whole Peacock takeover. I'm saying make this feel like an actual takeover because the talent's there for this. You have Roxy, Grimes versus Breaker. You're going to have possibly the Greeds and, like you said, Pretty Deadly maybe. You know, the
Which
talent.
Pretty Deadly can go. Their NXT UK tag run has some bangers.
You could have like the women's tag match, and you can give, Cora and Indy a shot at that. There's so many things on there to make that card great, and they're starting it with the keystone with that Grimes versus Breaker, and then they're probably going to end up pulling, and that's why I said it seems the formula for the North American Championship is the same. Triple threat, single, triple threat. Now we're going to end up getting a triple threat again with Sikoa and Tony D'Angelo versus Carmelo Hayes. So if it's something I'm hoping to have a great one. We'll talk about it when Bash at the Beach week comes out. In Your House for me was kind of lackluster. Like I said, only 2 great matches on there. Grimes is one of them. But it's just, for me, I like to be enthralled in consistency. To quote Sean Ross Sapp, I want stuff to make sense. I want wrestling to make sense.
Of course, I think we all want our wrestling to make sense. I pretty much gave up on that with NXT.
I haven't.
4 years ago. You're preaching to the choir there, man. We're closing in on an hour, so let's try and wrap this up. Patrick, Throwback, where can we find you? Media, social media, projects you're doing?
All right. So what we're doing is every Tuesday night, you're here with me, with this dude over here. We're going to kill it every Tuesday night, giving you the best thing for bodyslam.net for NXT post-show. We're going to give you our views, our thoughts on everything up, including takeovers, special events, special news. If there's breaking news, we'll both pop on there. I mean, you never know. Last time there was NXT releases, we had, Big Money Drew, the Wicked Crazy Pinfalls champion, and Anakin J&T on there.
And yours truly. Come on, give us some love.
I know. I always do. And then you got, Thursday nights, Wicked Crazy Pinfalls. We have a really crazy, and we just passed 2 years. Go give that video love. 2 years on doing this stuff. We had people like, Doc Miller on there, Chris Miller. We had, coexisting with Rob and Maggie. They're one of the people who originally, one of 3 people besides myself who helped me get to this point, who helped create Wicked Crazy Pinfalls. He is the person. My boy Rob Wilkins was on there. We had Big Money Drew. We had Shane Husky. Bad Blood popped up. Eventually I'm hoping to get Cass on eventually at some point, with Cass's schedule being crazy. You never know who might pop in. We've had Chris Parrish on there too. We've had Spencer Love, John Alba, Sean Ross Sapp. We've had so many great Pluggo. I gotta talk to them about an idea I have. You never know who might pop in. The only difference is because this week we're going to do something that's non-wrestling related on Wicked Crazy Pinfalls. We're going to talk about mainly possibly tomorrow, because of a special show that Body Slam's doing for BB that I'll be a part of, that rightfully, graciously I will be. We're going to end up not doing wrestling for a change, and we're going to shoot the crap about talking about their game cons going right now. So Microsoft just rolled out a bunch of games. Capcom just rolled a bunch of video games. PlayStation did. Nintendo is going to probably by the end of the week into next week. There's so much video game content. Hell, IGN just celebrated the 15-year anniversary of one of the most predominant gaming franchises, and I've played a bunch of them, Assassin's Creed. So we're going to end up talking about all that stuff. Anakin wants to talk about Street Fighter 6. So we're going to get into the video game side of Wicked Crazy Pinfalls because we haven't done that enough. We used to do that with, when E3 comes out and stuff. So it's something different to give people, instead of talking about wrestling, try to mix things up. And then we'll go back to Thursday nights and kill it. And then we got Money in the Bank. Our champion, Drew Nicholas, will be facing, I can't wait for this, his main rival throughout this whole tournament to crown it, Wrestling Perspectives, Dennis Farrell. So that will be awesome.
All right. Well, that certainly is a lot coming up for you. A lot to be excited about.
Hey, you're like talking about this belt. Like, literally, no, this is a belt, and I'll say this on here. Anybody in the community can go after. You can DM me and anybody, and we will literally make it happen. If my co-host here turns around and says, I want a shot at the champion, it's a shot at the champion. Why not?
Yeah, that's very slim.
So, I mean, all it is just a prediction show. You give me your picks, and then I put the points, and I tell you who wins. It's pretty simple as that. This title gets mailed to each other. It's a little money to ship it. It's £4, but still, you get to hold an actual title belt that you get to defend. There's stakes into these predictions, rather than just being like, hey, so what's your prediction for Breaker and Grimes? Who are you going to win? And if you think it pinfall? There's no stakes in it. You're just picking just because you feel like it. Why not have stakes into it?
Okay, so we're on minute 62 here. I'm going to try and keep my end of this relatively swift. No, you're good, man. So for me, you can follow me on Twitter at the Jameus. I tweet a lot of random stuff. Like earlier today, I went on a random rant about a Bon Jovi "Keep the Faith" track. Why? I don't know. But I tweet a lot about pro wrestling. I tweet a lot about baseball. Obviously, those are two mediums I'm writing in right now for wrestling specifically, since this is what that show is. I am an editor for bodysam.net. I cover news. I've not done it a lot recently. I've been primarily focusing on editing, producing podcasts, great podcasts like the Code of Honor podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have my own podcast coming up, a project I'm very excited for. I'm recording the first episode tomorrow with Corey Bernal. Should I give the podcast idea now, or are we too?
Go ahead, knock yourself out, man.
So the podcast is going to be the excellence.
Hey, look at it this way. This is a platform to make you feel better. Why not? We need positivity in the world instead of this negative BS in the world.
There's a lot of that. So, the Excellently Executed podcast, obviously, it's a play on the Bret Hart, who I think is, if not the greatest wrestler of all time, he's number 2, but he's probably number 1. Where we go over where we pick a maneuver each week. We go over different sequences, different executions, different cells of the maneuvers, different types of bumps with it, and just go in how the move fits different stories, different psychologies, what makes the move look good, what makes the move not look good. I think it's a really cool podcast idea. I don't have an idea when it's going to air yet, but it's really cool. I'm excited for it. I don't know if you are. I don't know if I explained it well. I probably did not. Right now, I seem to be pontificating about it, so I'm just going to shut up.
Also, before we head out and we close out, tomorrow night, go check out after AEW, the Roundtable podcast. They're in a whole court where they basically give you their thoughts on AEW. Thursday night, they're doing a celebration for Bad Blood for being in the ring for 30 years and celebrating his birthday also. Go support you guys. And then we'll be there also. So many great people, I'm going to say, besides us. Go go to Twitter, go to Big Money Drew. Good guy. Literally is one of the best people there. Go check out everybody. Check out this dude too. Like he says, he's got a lot of stuff going on. Other than that, for me, I'll just end this with this. Throwback 978 on on Twitch. Just look that up. Twitter's the same. Throwback 27 for all that stuff because I forgot to be an idiot and plug it. And as I always say on Wicked Crazy Pinfalls, and I figure this to do a good deed, pay it forward because a good deed always does a good thing for somebody.
A good deed. Do multiple of those a day. I don't really know what to add to that. That's pretty sound advice. So if we're advertising other people at Body Slam, let's give some love to the Code of Honor podcast. You can follow them for all of your Ring of Honor news. Their archives have a lot of good information, including some interviews with Kerry Silken, the former owner of Ring of Honor. Kylie Fuller and Kyle Sparks do a wonderful job at that. Follow them at Code of Honor Cast. You can follow Tea and Tights, our Brit Rest podcast. They do a wonderful job, including our NXT UK coverage. Andy and Dan do a terrific job on that. We have a lot of great podcasts, so be sure to subscribe to the Body Slam YouTube channel, Body Slam Net, on all socials, including Twitch. Buy our Pro Wrestling Tees merchandise. Support writers like me, podcasters like the both of us. Content creating ain't easy. I think I covered everything. If not, I'm sure I'll hear about it later.
Just be safe.
Be safe. That's the most important thing.